Chair Weigel, we're ready to go at 4:30, whenever you are.
Okay, so let me bring up mine. All right. I haven't used the gavel in like 2 years. So look at that, it's 4:30. I'd like to call the regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Santa Rosa Design Review Board to order. And with that, we are in person, so I don't think I have to read all the stuff, right? Okay, so at least in terms of the public health officer stuff. But that being said, members of the public may participate virtually in our meeting, our hybrid meeting. So you can be here in person or you can participate virtually. If you'd like to participate virtually, go to www.zoom.us/join or by calling toll-free to 1-800-1877-853-5257 and use the meeting ID, not this one, sorry. Got the wrong meeting ID. Bear with me. Use meeting ID 867-5845-4073. Public comment may be made live during the meeting, in person, via Zoom or phone. Additional information related to the meeting is available at the city's website at http://srcity.org/design review board. The meeting will be live streamed at santa-rosa.legistar.com/calendar. Click on the in progress link to view. The meeting can also be viewed on Comcast channel 28 and is also being streamed on the city's YouTube site at youtube.com/City of Santa Rosa. So with that, I would like to turn it over to our illustrious recording secretary for a roll call.
Board Member Cook. Board Member Jones-Carter. Board Member Sharon.
Here.
Board Member Withrich is absent. Vice Chair Birch.
Here.
Chair Weigel.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all board members are present with the exception of Board Member Withrich, who is absent.
Thank you. So we'll move on to item 2, approval of minutes. So we'll just go through them one by one here. Any changes or objections to the items contained in 2.1, which are the minutes from December 15th, 2022? Seeing none, I'd like to move the December 15th minutes into the record. Item 2.2, January 5th minutes. Objections, changes? Seeing none, I'd like to move the January 5th minutes into the record. 2.3, January 19th minutes. Any objections or changes? Seeing none, I'd like to move the January 19th minutes into the record. And item 2.4, February 2nd meeting minutes. Any objections or changes? Seeing none, I'd like to move that into the record. So with that, I'd like to go to item number 3, public comment. Except for items that are listed on the agenda, this is time for members of the public to make comment on anything that is germane or within the jurisdiction or purview of the Design Review Board. So if you'd like to make a public comment on items not on the agenda, please either proceed to the 2 podiums in the rear of the council chambers or raise your hand on the Zoom platform.
Chair Weigel, I don't see anybody making their way to the podium, and I don't see any hands raised on Zoom.
All right, so with that, I'd like to close item 3, public comment. Not seeing any public commenters. And so we will go to item 4, which is board business, at which time I would like to read our statement of purpose. Zoning Code Chapter 20-52.030F, project review. The review authority shall consider the location, design, site plan configuration, and the overall effect of the proposed project upon surrounding properties and the city in general. Review shall be conducted by comparing the proposed project to the general plan, any applicable specific plan, applicable zoning code standards and requirements, consistency of the project within the city's design guidelines, architectural criteria for special areas, and other applicable city requirements, e.g. city policy statements and development plans. Item 4.2, are there any board member reports? All right, seeing none. Item 4.3, I'd like to introduce a new member of the Design Review Board, sitting over there to my right, Mike Cook. Mike is a landscape architect in the area. Mike, would you like to introduce yourself, say a little bit about yourself? And glad to have you on Design Review Board.
Hi, everybody. Mike Cook. I'm a principal at Integral Landscape Architecture. We have an office here in Santa Rosa. I've been practicing landscape architecture for over 20 years. I think that's it.
Thanks, Mike. Glad to have you here. Other than that, I don't think we have any other business. Okay, so with that, we'll move to item 5, department reports, and I'll turn it over to our board liaison, supervising planner Amy Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair Weigel, and good afternoon, members of the board. I don't have much of a report today. I just wanted to say it's great to be back here in person after 3 years, and happy to have you on the board, Board Member Cook. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. So item 6, statements of abstention. This is any statements of abstention for conflicts of interest on item 8.1. Any statements of abstention this evening? All right, seeing none, we will move to item 7, consent items. There are none. So with that, we'll move to item 8.1, which is a public hearing, design review for airway self-storage, which is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act at 3383 Airway Drive, city file number DR22-018. And with that, I would like to turn it over to the project planner, Susie Murray, for a staff presentation.
Chair Weigel, sorry to interrupt, but can you ask for ex parte disclosures?
Sure. I normally do it after the staff presentation, but that we can do it before. That's cool too. Any ex parte disclosure on this item? No, seeing none. All right, so then we'll move to the staff report. So Susie, all you.
One moment, please. We're trying to get the presentation up on the screen. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Weigel and members of the Design Review Board. It is very nice to be back in the chambers. Project before you this afternoon is airway self-storage. It's a proposed self-storage facility located at 3383 Airway Drive. The project involves the construction of a two-story, well, I guess let me back up. It involves the demolition of the existing storage facility and the reconstruction of a two-story facility that's photographed there, or not photographed, but a rendering there, that will provide 569 self-storage units. It's approximately 6,000 or 62,000 square feet, and the only required entitlement is design review. This use is permitted by right at that location. This is an aerial view of the site as it stands today. There are four structures for storage. This is what it looks like from the street. Just to give you an idea of the neighborhood context there, the site is noted with a star, and it's surrounded on all sides by light industrial and commercial uses, and then off to the west you can see there's some residential uses separated by a number of other commercial uses. excuse me. And back in 2001, we had a pre-application meeting with staff. The project didn't require a neighborhood meeting because it doesn't affect any residential neighborhoods. Back in December of 16, I think that's more like 2021, that's a typo. We had concept review with the Design Review Board. The board at the time was generally in favor of the project, both with the architecture and the color palette, with some recommended changes to the north and west elevations, color of the roll-up doors and what have you to kind of jazz up the appearance. The applications were submitted in April of 2022, and then we're before you today. General plan land use designation is light industry. The zoning is light industrial, which is consistent with the general plan. You can also see here that it's surrounded on all sides by properties with the same zoning and general plan land use designation. The site plan, it's a very simple site plan that one building with a wraparound drive-through and parking on that lower right corner. I guess that is actually the southeast corner. Project does implement goals and policies of the general plan, including maintaining a vibrant, convenient, and attractive commercial center. I think it is definitely a step up in terms of the building design, and it preserves and enhances Santa Rosa's scenic character, again, by putting a much nicer looking building and landscaping on that site. It's also been reviewed in compliance with development standards, including circulation, emergency access, and of course development standards set forth in the zoning code. There are 7 required findings, 6 shown here. And as shown on the drafted resolution, staff's determination is that those findings can be met. I hope you agree. The project was also reviewed in compliance with the design guidelines. We looked at section 3.4 that talks about business and light industrial parks and buildings, and section 4.3 for infill development. Project has also been reviewed in compliance with the Environmental Quality Act, or California Environmental Quality Act, and qualifies for several exemptions for infill development because it involves the demolition and reconstruction of the same type of buildings, same type of use on the same property, and it also is eligible for a streamlining measure pursuant to, or because it's consistent with the general plan for which an EIR or environmental impact report was certified by council. There have been no issues raised as part of staff's review, and there were no public comments received. Whoopsie. And with that, I don't know what happened there. Okay, with that, it is recommended by Planning and Economic Development Department that the Design Review Board, by resolution, grant design review for the Airway Self-Storage Project at 3383 Airway Drive. My contact information is shown on the board. If anybody has any questions after the meeting, this is where you can get copies of plans and ask me questions. That concludes my presentation. The applicant team is here and would like to do a presentation as well. Unless you have questions for me, I'll get that set up.
Thanks, Susie. Is everybody comfortable with just going to what we've been doing in the virtual environment, because that seemed to work better for us? We were just moving straight to the applicant presentation and then doing questions of both staff and the applicant. You guys want to keep doing that? I think it worked pretty well. Okay, cool. So applicant presentation, please.
We're getting there.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page here, because I think that'll work. Seems to be streamlined for us in that regard.
We're doing questions from the public hearing between, before our questions.
That's right, that's
So, okay.
Yeah, and we'll do the public hearing after the applicant presentation, before our questions. That way we can make sure if there are any public comments, we can wrap them in. That's what Vice Chair Birch was talking about.
All right. Thank you so much. I think we're ready now. Yeah. My name's Gordon Wong. I'm the architect on the project, and this is my colleague.
I'm Joshua. I'm the project representative / designer, and I work under Gordon.
Our company's GKW Architects, and this is...
All right, I'm Tony Caceres, owner of the Future Airway Self-Storage, hopefully.
And we're here just to give a few little more details about the project. We've brought samples. We have a material board, and we'll just give a brief summary of what we've been doing. So I've been working with Tony since 2021, and we reviewed the... Oh, thank you so much. We reviewed the project with the fire department, planning, public works. We did do a neighborhood walk. We looked at the site and tried to get the project to scale in terms of all the buildings around it. We did notice there was a row of trees on the right side of the building, so we decided 2 stories would be really nice because then the trees still block off the side. We put a little more detail in the street-facing portion of the building. Maybe we could start the slides. Yeah. So this is the existing site. Next slide. There we go. Yeah, so you kind of see in the aerial view the brown material is actually a metal clad material, and it looks just like wood. It's durable, lightweight, works really well for this type of a project. And below there's a band of landscaping. There's 4 trees, 2 different types of species. We have 6 types of shrubs and 3 types of ground coverage. And that's kind of like the whole overall look and feel of the street facing. We do have bioretention in the back corners of the site to make sure that all the stormwater is maintained on the site. And the asphalt wrapping around the building is for both the fire apparatus and for the convenience of accessing the storage center. Josh, continue.
Yeah. Susie, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so just briefly laying out, Susie, thank you for covering this for us, but just the existing proposed site plan. As you can see, there's a roadway access all around the building, and we're proposing 4 big trees in the front, and we're also including, we're going to be planting a new tree adjacent to the parking area. And on the southern facade of the building, there's going to be vehicle access storage centers where the roll-up doors will be on the southern face. We're going to have our circulation within the building. Susie, can you go to the next slide? Yeah. Landscape plan, yeah, just laying out the new plans that we're going to be creating. And we're going to be, Susie, you can go to the next slide. Yeah, this is the first floor plan. The front office, main lobby, is going to be on the lower southern eastern side of the building. And you can see on the southern side of the building is going to be the storage centers. There's going to be 2 main paths of circulation and 2 elevators. As well as all bathrooms in the building will be ADA accessible, as well as all of the turnarounds. And you go to the next slide.
We've got 3 different sizes of storages, so it's really convenient for anybody who wants to rent a certain type and size. We're providing a new office. All the accessibility is there. Same with the parking areas. We have handicap accessibility, and some of them have shaded parking. And those are some of the things that were requested. Next slide. Here's an example of the exterior finish. It is a wood grain finish, but it's actually metal for long lasting and have to do any treatment in the future. Next slide. Here's some of the stucco colors that we're going for. We're going for earth tone to tie the building down. Again, with that corrugated metal from Pack Clad. Next slide. The roof is going to be standing seam metal. We found that to be more cost effective than the torch down or the EPDM membrane roof. Next slide. Here's just a front rendition with those two types of trees. One has a little bit of color from the flowers, and the other one's a pistachio tree. And on the left side, you can see the shaded area for people who are coming in and out of the building. We have 2 punch windows on the left side and 2 mullion glass windows more towards the center. Next slide. I also have Tony can maybe give a little short overview of the business.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, once again, I'd like to thank everybody again for your time in reviewing our project. This really is a dream come true for myself and my family. I've been in the storage business for about 12 years. But this is the first one where we actually own the property and are really looking forward and super excited to this project. Put a lot of time and thought and details in the build out, obviously, of course, working with Gordon. And we plan to implement some promotions also for anybody who was displaced during the fires that occurred throughout this beautiful county. Aside from that, it is just a storage facility, so there might not be, it's not necessarily glamorous in that aspect, but really looking forward to this project and excited. And if there's any questions you guys have, feel free to ask. I think the only other thing that I would touch on also is because of my experience in the storage business, being able to build this facility from the ground up is really going to help us control certain aspects of the storage industry that have been problematic before in the past, whether one, the building being an eyesore, or two, security issues, things of that nature, that being able to build this from the ground up is really going to minimize any of those negative effects that you may have seen in storage and other projects. So thank you.
Any questions or comments we're glad to hear and answer. Thank you.
Excellent, thanks. So we'll hold off on comments to you guys, the applicant team, in a minute. So with that, so thank you again. Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate that. So we will go to open the public hearing now. So I'd like to look for public comment on this item. And so if you'd like to make public comment and you are here in the chamber, please proceed to the podiums at the rear, or otherwise raise your hand in the Zoom platform.
Chair Weigel, there are no members of the public making their way to the podium, and I don't see any hands raised on Zoom.
Cool, thank you. How many attendees do we have in the virtual meeting, just out of curiosity?
1.
Oh, okay, cool. I only ask because sometimes when we've had, 15, 20, and everybody's a little slow to get their finger on that raise the hand button. So, excellent. So seeing no public commenters, I would like to close the public hearing at this time. And we'll bring it back to the board, and we'll do questions of staff and the applicant. And I'm going to put board member Sharon in the hot seat tonight for questions. So Adam, you're up.
Excuse me. Thank you, Susie, for your presentation. Great to see it, and great to see it in person. It's great we have the materials board, too. It's very nice to see. Thank you, applicants. You said it's only a storage facility, but I can tell you've put a lot of thought into it, and it's great to see that, even with, sort of utilitarian projects, to see actual good design. So thanks for that. Just had a question. We don't have the landscape architect here, do we? On the team? Okay. In that case, I don't have any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Adam. So I'll go to board member Cook over there for any questions of staff or the applicant.
I just have a couple. One was in the project narrative. It says that they're planting quercus trees, and I didn't see the quercus trees anywhere on the legend for the landscape plan. The project narrative that I believe was written by your company states that there will be several Quercus live oak trees proposed, and the landscape plan doesn't have any native trees on the plans.
So, hey, Mike, thanks. So if you guys could just go back up to the podium there so the folks online can hear. And also, this all gets recorded and uploaded for posterity's sake. So any answers, we'd like to have that on the record. Thank you.
The question was if we are proposing live oak trees?
Yeah, yes, the project narrative that the architect wrote states that there will be several oak trees, native oak trees proposed, and the landscape plan does not have any native trees on the plan. I was trying to get clarification on what the proposal is. It to plant oak trees or not to plant oak trees?
Okay. Yes, I'm not sure. We don't have any of the live oak trees proposed. We just have the Lagestrama, which are the crepe myrtle trees, and the pistache trees.
Okay, so it'll be per the landscape plan.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and then my other question was, there's the trees are proposed in each the rear corners, and if looking at the civil engineer's plans, it looks like that's like a recessed stormwater retention area, and I did not see on the landscape plan that trees were being proposed back there. There are.
We do have one tree in each corner, as well as trees in the project frontage.
And it's coordinated with the civil.
And it is coordinated with the civil. They do show the bioretention areas.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mike, I know you got a big voice. Can you speak up a little bit? And you guys too, can you make sure you get closer to the microphone so that we can, not only can we hear you, but also, anybody else? Thanks.
And I think the only other question I have is just about lighting. So I saw the photometric plan, but I don't believe I saw like light poles. Is all the lighting coming off of the building?
Yeah. So we do have a photometric plan. And once we get our mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineer on board, we'll make sure it's dispersed at least 1 foot candle throughout the whole site. Yeah.
And I think my question, I think the photometric plan looked fine the way it was. I would be more concerned about light spillover to other properties.
Yeah, we'll make sure that the light, I coordinated with our utility consultant, and they're going to make sure that the light doesn't go to other properties.
Yeah. So what we're showing on our photometric plan is downlights. Yeah. So there will not be light pollution.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mike, if you look at E000, that photometric plan, there's two cut sheets on the right-hand side, and they both look like wall packs. They're just different, different styles of wall pack. Cool. Is that it? All right, thanks, Mike.
Drew, could I ask sorry, Melanie?
Yeah, go ahead.
A procedural question. And so this is design review. So this would be the last time we see it, correct?
Correct.
This needs to be a full package that's brought to us today.
Full package.
Yeah.
This is the last time we'll see it, so hopefully we'll be able to condition it and approve it, right? Hopefully, we'll see. But yeah, this is the last time we'll see it. Okay, questions of the staff or the applicant, board member Jones Carter?
I just have one question. Bike access says that there's curb cuts for it, but I don't see anything inside the facility for storage of bikes. I know most people will probably be coming in their cars, but something there?
the answer I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, so your question was regarding bike storage within the building for...
Yes.
We'll propose bike racks outside of the building for people. If people decide to bike to the storage facility, they'll be able to park outside. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, questions of staff or the applicant, Vice Chair Birch?
Yes, good afternoon. Great to be back here. Great to see the staff, and nice to see the board in person. It's the first time I've met several of the board members in person. Been working with them for 2 or 3 years now. So, the one question that I had was: is there a structural or a practical construction reason that the windows on the Airway Drive facade couldn't continue in a pattern? Sort of, we've got the 2 windows that are in the, I believe, in the office and the caretaker's unit, and they're the tall verticals, and then we go to a nice larger window that lets some natural light into that corridor, which is great. I'm just curious, if we sort of stop then, we have a building mass, and I understand sort of an, non-symmetrical is good. I'm just curious if there's a reason that there couldn't be additional window openings that kind of finish that pattern. I feel like half of the facade has a pattern, and the other half of the facade just sort of stops.
So actually, Michael, if I can chime in a little bit, this was going to be my question as well. So in your December 16th, 2021 concept design, you had the window went kind of side to side for the entire front facade, and then it's been reduced to 2 windows. And I think that's,
yeah.
So and I think tied to that, within the documents, there's a conflict, right? So there, in some renderings, there's a full window. In some elevations, there's the 2 windows. In some renderings, there's the 2 windows. And then in one elevation, there's the full window. So I think maybe we're just looking for a little bit of clarification as to why the decision was made to reduce the window
Or I
as
think,
originally proposed?
Yeah.
Right? Or,
and are there limitations or practical construction reasons that, cost or whatever, that would limit the number of windows so that we could possibly make a comment and provide some guidance to as to the window configuration? So.
Yeah, so you guys are right. In our previous design iteration, we did have the full spanning windows, but due to the smaller windows, since these are actually quite large windows, I think they're like 12 feet by 12 feet. It's the ease of construction to make them smaller, and it still allows light to go in, but the long span of windows would make it the construction more complex and increase costs. Yeah. But this way we found like a good meet in the middle to still allow light to go in, but also maximize the amount of storage capacity and, still, yeah.
Great, thank you. That's all my questions, Drew.
Thank you.
thanks, Michael. I've got a couple of questions. So in the previous package, you had all the parking up front was covered parking, and it's since been reduced to only a couple of spaces. Looks like maybe 3 or 4, where before they were, 1, 2, 3, 4. And before you had, I think, like all kind of 12 spaces covered. Was the decision to reduce that based on cost consideration?
So that was reduced due to cost consideration, as well as I believe we're required 2 covered parking spaces for the caretaker and the office, the manager space, as well as we'll be proposing, since Susie asked us if we could provide a tree next to the parking area, that will provide additional coverage, and it's more natural for the landscape as well.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that you're going to find is, from a code requirement standpoint, if you provide covered parking and you have ADA parking, you have to have covered ADA parking, right? You can't have non-ADA covered parking, and you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For equal accommodations. So I just wonder if you can find a way to just cover it all, then that solves all the problem.
Yeah, we can definitely adjust that.
Yeah.
since it's still up for consideration. And also, when we made that design change, the cost of steel was going up. But now it's going down.
Yeah.
We can revise that. Yeah.
Yeah, the roller coaster that is material costs right now,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
It's
We did
bonkers.
the project like 3 times, and we saw the huge fluctuation. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get that. Okay, my next question is, there's a kind of a conflict here on what you call decorative metal green screen, which I'm assuming is some type of creeping vine screen container element. But in some elevations, it's got 2 panels, and other elevations, it's got 4 panels. What was your intent, I guess? Because what will help us condition your project is if we can point to like for instance, sheet A2000 in your set, or A200, it has 2 panels, right? So that when we condition it, we can say, hey, 2 panels per A200, right? Then that way, when the planners look at it, when you submit your final package, you're in conformance, right? But because there's different layouts, it's hard for us to condition it, and then the planners will have lots of questions, and we try to help them out as much as we can.
Yeah, so the panels are to break up the facade, and they will be 2 panels. Yeah, they will be 2 panels because we're working on our building set right now, and that's what we have in our building set. So yeah, and the reason why we don't have it on one facade is because the other facade is we will have trees, and it's for existing trees. So yeah,
There's like a whole row of existing trees on the north facade, so completely covered. Whereas the other facades are open, so that's where we wanted to put the green screen to help match the rest. That was the intent, yeah.
Okay, cool. So we've talked about panel, conflict, covered parking, vestige renderings, kind of, sort of, reduction in glazing. On the north side of the building, I believe in the December set, the concept design review set, you had some windows on that side. They are now gone. I'm assuming that's because in the new floor plan, there's storage units all along the north side, so that really doesn't make a whole heap of sense to put windows into storage units, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that answers that one. Okay, so I have a question on your site plan. So you're showing like a 20-foot, what looks like a driveway. I'm assuming, so if a car were to come onto this property, they could completely encircle the building, pretty much, right? Is that what I'm seeing?
yeah. So the driveway is so vehicles can access the ground floor storage units, because there's storage units that you could directly access from the outside of the storage facility. So that's why we have the turnaround.
Yeah, no, I meant I guess it would be on the
the front of the building?
front, yeah, the Airway Drive facade. There's a drive in front there.
Yeah.
Was that driven by fire or just to help?
Yeah, that was driven by fire, and
Okay.
I think there's easements in the front that.
Okay, cool, excellent. Yeah, the reason I'm asking, I guess, is, when we start talking about bike parking and some of those other elements, your ADA access from the sidewalk on Airway Drive is crossing that drive aisle, and then you have, a number of parking spaces. So I'm struggling to find where I would put bicycle parking, right? We're kind of out of space in that area in terms of, both the drives and, your trash enclosure, your ADA parking, path of travel, that kind of stuff. So anyway, just something to think about.
I think we would have space in the front of the building, because there's a overhang right underneath the overhang.
Okay.
We could put bike parking there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, adjacent to the office, so it's convenient for customers to access. Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing it now on your south elevation. Yeah, you could put it there. Okay, cool. And then, so you guys passed around some finishes, but I'm unclear if you handed us proposed finishes or examples of finishes. Does that make sense? So for instance, the La Habra stucco that you handed us is not agreeable gray. It was something else.
Yeah. So those are proposed finishes. Those, no, sorry, those are examples of finishes.
Okay,
So
cool.
that's just example for you to feel it, but the color will be what we showed in the presentation.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just
sorry
wanted to
about the
clarify.
confusion.
No, perfect. Yeah. Just wanted to clarify. Yeah, samples are hard to come by now too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you call somebody, you're like, hey, can I get some samples? They're like, no.
Yeah.
So I get it. Okay, perfect. All right. I know. All right, any other questions sparked by any of that for anyone else? Mike?
I just wanted to follow up on the driveway question. I was going to comment to ask if we could remove that driveway to allow for more landscape, because I think in the landscape plans are showing the trees within the public utility easement, which I don't know that the city would allow. So if we aren't allowed to put trees in the public utility easement, there's nowhere to put trees in the front of the building. So I think that would be a problem. And so I just the question, is it feasible to remove that driveway? And then my other question, kind of to follow up on the glass, the front on the frontage. One of my questions was going to be, can we put some more glass or some glazing or something on that wall on the lower floor? Because that's really plain right now. And so you go from the plain front wall to a driveway to a little bit of landscape to the street. So it would seem to me if we could decorate that a little bit more, it would look better.
Yeah, we can definitely add more openings to allow for more light in on the ground floor. Yeah, and in regards to the landscaping, I think we need that driveway for fire, but we do have like that stretch of landscaping, but we'll try to increase it so there's more landscape available. Yeah.
One reason why that happened was we worked out the memorandum with fire. The lot is a little thin, so the width of driveway to driveway, they wanted more flexibility because the driveways were too close together. So we told them we would make a loop and wrap around the whole building. Yeah.
So I think tied to that, Mike, so I understand that, the minimum requirement for one-way traffic is like 14 feet or 12 feet, something like that. So I wonder if you guys might consider a conversation with fire about making that one-way so that it both accommodates, an emergency vehicle and also traffic circulation, but then you can give that remaining, 6 or 8 feet to potential plantings. I don't know, it's kind of a comment, not a question, sorry about that. But I think because if fire was so adamant about having access, I think that's fine. I think just ask maybe take it to the next step, the next question, which is, what's your minimum width that you guys want?
Okay. We'll reach out to fire about that. Yeah, we'll find out.
Cool, and then I had one more question that I think I missed this on the plan set. So there's square windows in the stucco on the ground floor on the airway elevation, and they're effectively clerestory windows, correct? Just kind of evenly spaced. I'm seeing that correctly? There's 4 of them.
So we will change them to large. Oh wait, what was your question? You
So
said
I just wanted to
clerestory?
clarify that they are in fact just square clerestories.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
they're square clerestory, but we, as discussed before, we'll try to make them bigger. Yeah, we'll make them bigger.
I kind of disagree with Mike, and the reason why is because it looks like you have storage units on one side of there, so that may be challenge. It's because you have to balance both security and also kind of facade design, and I don't know, it may be we can talk about more in comments, I think, but I just wanted to clarify that those were clerestory windows on the ground floor on the airway drive elevation, which it sounds like they are.
We'll do our best to kind of pair it up, because I think the one that is next to the lobby, we can make that one bigger. The ones with the storage units, I would keep them high and small for security, but we'll look at that to make sure we bring the front facade more interest.
Cool,
Thank you.
awesome, thank you. All right, any other questions, board?
I just want to drill down just a little bit here on the on that driveway on the front side. Was the 20 feet the requirement of the fire department? Because they don't, Drew, I'm afraid that they don't think about one way or two way. They think about two trucks. They think about passing. And I didn't know further if staff had any comment on whether or not the landscape planting in the easement is something that you typically see. I know that it's probably not. I don't know if you have an answer to that, but I was just asking the question if you typically see that. I'd hate to see this get to a point where 20 feet's the requirement, can't plant in the easement. So, not sure what your thoughts are.
Oh, I don't even know what kind of easement it is, and I can take a few minutes and find out, and we can find out. Just reach out to a couple other city staff members and see if we can't get some answers on that. I can review the conditions of approval and figure out what kind of easement that is. I know we do see plantings in some types of easements, particularly if it's a sidewalk easement with a planter strip in it. And then as far as the driveway width, I can easily reach out to the fire department and find out if they would entertain a 14-foot wide looped one-way driveway. But it's going to take me 10 minutes if you want to.
Well, I think that from my perspective, if we can condition the project that what's shown on the plan, I'm thinking ahead here. If we can condition the project based on a minimum of what's on the plans now, and a recommendation, a shall or add additional landscaping as approved, that puts the applicant team in a good position to go ahead and do the work that they need to do anyway with fire and with getting the project to building permits. I'd like to get them out of here. It's going to be an issue if it's an issue, but it would be nice if we could get through it today. I don't know that we need to know. Does that sound right, Drew? I think we can condition a minimum and then.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can. I think we can find a way to condition it that doesn't tie the applicant's hands, and that gives some flexibility to figure out what fire may or may not accept. I think that may be the pathway forward. I was just trying to look through your plan set to see if the easements were called out, and they are not.
Yeah. So we just want to step in and clarify.
I can find on the civil.
On the civil plan, there's a public utility easement, but we're allowed to have plantings in that. And yeah, like you said, we'll go back and we'll talk with fire to see what the minimum is, and we'll work with fire to maximize the amount of planting we will have in the front.
Yeah, the only easement I'm seeing is that 7.5-foot public utility easement. I didn't.
Yeah,
see any
that was it.
ones.
And yeah, we're allowed to have plantings in that easement. So yeah.
And the planting area does extend past the 7.5 PUE, but it doesn't extend far enough past if you were prohibited or something, I guess. Anyway, okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, applicant team. I think we're done with questions, so appreciate you.
Thank you.
You guys can sit down. So I'd like to bring it back to the board now, and I'll be looking for a motion on the project now. So for those of you who don't know, we follow Rosenberg's rules. So it's a little bit different than Robert's rules. So we make a motion first and then kind of tack on to it. So with that, looking to the board for a motion on the project. And as a reminder, we can approve the project, we can deny the project, we can continue the project to a date certain, or we can do, an approval with a bunch of conditions too. So looking for a motion.
Make the motion to approve resolution number DRB-2023-004, a resolution of the Design Review Board of the City of Santa Rosa granting design review approval for airway self-storage, DBA Santa Rosa Storage, located at 3383 Airway Drive, assessor's parcel number 015-670-041, city file number DR22-018, and waive the reading of the text.
Thank you. I'm looking for a second now.
I'll second that.
All right. So we have a motion and we have a second. So with that, let's start with Board Member Cook for any comments on the project.
So this is what I would want to see conditioned, or any other comments that I have?
Just any comments you have on the project, what you'd like to see conditioned, and so I'm going to take notes. So for our 2 new board members, I don't know if you guys went through this last time, because was it a concept item, Michael, when I had to recuse?
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe it was a concept item. Yep.
Okay. So just as a quick refresher, when we condition projects, we use shall and consider language. So shall is it absolutely must be done, or the project will not get approved. And consider is recommendations to the design team to take a look at things that would be nice to see, but aren't necessarily critical to the success of the project. So, and then I'll take notes of your comments, and then at the end, we'll kind of read them all again and see where we're at and see if we can come to consensus, and then we'll talk with the applicant and see if everything seems amenable to them, and then we will likely take a vote and move forward. So, does that make sense, Mike? Yep. Cool.
So I guess first I just want to say, I think this is a huge improvement for the property, so thank you for looking into the investment in our community. I do think for storage, just a storage facility, you've done a nice job with the materials and the elevations, and I think overall it's a really nicely designed project, and like I said, I look forward to seeing it happen. For me, I think regarding conditions, I think we should consider some improvement on the lower, floor elevation, whether that's glass or texture, or maybe even just score lines, something along those lines that will just give it a little bit more interest. I think we shall request a reduction in the driveway width along the front, so that more landscaping can be proposed there, and avoid the PUE. So I wasn't saying that in a PUE you could not plant, but I don't believe you can plant trees. And so if that PUE pretty much takes up that whole landscape area, then no trees would be there. And I think the trees would add the interest along the frontage that would screen the building frontage a little bit. And then as far as so I'm a landscape architect, so as far as the landscape is concerned, the plant varieties are fine with me. I don't see any varieties on the landscape plan that can be used in the biofiltration or bioretention area. In Santa Rosa, we have just a list, like a 4-page, 5-page list that are the plants, or only plants you can use in our stormwater facilities. So I think we shall require them to use the biofiltration plant list. And then,
Mike, is that the City of Santa Rosa plant list?
LID.
The LID, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
And, yeah.
Chair Weigel and Board Member Cook, could I interject? There is a condition of approval that talks about a planter strip, a 4-foot wide planter strip along the airway frontage. So I think the trees can go into the planter strip at the street unless it doubles as bioretention, in which case they'd be limited. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
And actually, Mike, while you were talking, so in the zoning code, 20-36.080, driveways, minimum width of driveway or aisle shall be 12 feet for one-way traffic and 20 feet for two-way traffic, except where parking necessitates a larger backup dimension per table 3.6. Reductions or modifications may be permitted by a minor conditional use permit. So I think there might be some flexibility within the zone. I mean, there's absolutely flexibility within the zoning code, but we'll have to double check with fire if they're willing to reduce that. Would just be my tack onto that, Mike.
Thank you. And then, while we were talking about the driveway, the other idea I had was potentially, if fire needs that 20-foot width, you could do the T turnaround idea and then leave some room in the middle so they should consider that if the 20-foot is required. That is all I have at the moment.
And Susie, just to clarify, is it a condition in the resolution on that 4-foot already? Or was that somewhere else?
Yes, it's in the attached Exhibit A from Engineering Development Services.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Oh, I see it.
And is that the sidewalk planter strip that's outside of the property line where there's not currently any?
Well, I think it's actually inside the property line. It's in an easement. I mean, it's owned by I think it's owned.
In looking at the landscape plan, L1, it is outside of the property line. It looks like it's on the street. Maybe the landscape plan is incorrect. If I'm reading it correctly, where you see on the very right-hand side where it says 190 feet and then OH, it's outside of the. That's the planter strip you're talking about, where it's 4 feet and able to be planting trees.
I'm pulling up the map to figure out where the property line is.
Gotcha.
Sure, yeah.
And applicant, if you can chime in too.
Yeah.
Sorry to make you keep running up and back and forth.
Actually, just 1 second on that. So I was looking at the easement dedication, and Susie, thanks for pointing that out. So it looks like as part of the exhibit, the applicant will be required to do a half-width street improvement on Airway Drive as part of the project, and that includes from the center line of the road, a 12-foot travel lane, an 8-foot wide parking lane, 6-inch curb and gutter, 4-foot wide planter strip, 5-foot wide sidewalk, and then we've actually hit the property line, and then the property line then has the 7.5-foot PUE. So I think, Susie, thank you for pointing out the 4-foot, but the 4-foot I think is actually on the city property.
Yeah, it's city.
On Airway Drive, not the other direction like I think the board has been talking about. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am.
Well, that was my question about if the plan is correct, and if that is, if it is correct, and there are trees proposed in the 7.5-foot easement, and then also in the street planter strip, we're creating multiple, and that they're not called out. So I'll get into my comments later, but.
Yeah, and if you look at the civil plans, it looks like they've got the sidewalk improvement, but there isn't anything denoted really for the planting strip. It doesn't look like it, but I could be missing it. Well, it's shown on the landscape plan. The planter strip's on the landscape plan. So I think we're talking about two separate things.
But it's outside of the property line on the landscape plan, if you're looking at that.
Yeah, and it should be, though, based on the...
Well, I'm saying that if we were asking, Mike was asking about the trees being in the utility, and Susie mentioned that they could be planted in the 4-foot strip, but the plan that we're looking at, there's nothing in the 4-foot strip. We got the 7-foot strip that's an easement, and so there's a discrepancy.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, at least what I'm hearing from you guys, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Mike seems to think that perhaps we might not be able to put trees in a PUE. And if that's the case...
That's my understanding, too.
Yeah, so see, and you guys are landscape architects, that's why you're here. So if you can't put trees in a PUE, where can you put trees, I think is the question, right? And so the question is, could we put it in the 4-foot planting strip that Susie identified? Or is there another location outside the PUE to the west, effectively, and that would require the reduction in the driveway, right? So it's kind of an A or B situation, I think, if the PUE information is correct per what you guys are saying. Does that make, did I get that, did I wrap that up pretty good?
I think so.
Okay, cool. All right. Mike, any more comments?
No, but just to kind of follow up on what was just discussed, I believe where you guys landed is correct. There should be a 4-foot planter between the curb and the sidewalk that we could plant, that we could ask or condition to be planted with trees, then the 5-foot sidewalk, and then the landscape area where the landscape architect is showing the trees now. So,
And then I guess my question to you guys and perhaps staff is, if the trees get moved out into the 4-foot planter strip, would those trees then be subject to the City of Santa Rosa street tree requirements? Because that's effectively what that is, right? Okay, so would that change the species of tree that's currently specified?
I don't know.
Not necessarily with the two that they've called out.
Okay.
But there's the discrepancy of the quercus, which there's no oaks specified, but if you were going to plant a coast live oak street tree, we would want to ask about that.
Cool, thanks guys. All right, thanks Mike. And with that, I'm going to bring it back over here to Board Member Jones Carter for her comments on the project.
I have nothing else to add.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll go back over to Board Member Sharon.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and once again, thank you for fielding our questions and being responsive. Definitely echo Board Member Cook's comments about the improvement that you're proposing here, and excited for the city and excited for your family as well. So thank you for proposing this. Definitely an improvement. The architecture is very nice. You guys have given us a really nice update from what we saw a couple of years ago, and listened to our comments then. Thank you for that. I guess the architecture mostly, I'm not going to really echo what has been asked or talked about so far. One thing I would like to emphasize, though, is you are proposing, you got a single-story structure, and you're proposing to have a two-story structure, and so there's going to be more massing that's along there, and it's a very long building on the site. And if you look, when you visit the site, if you look on the street view, you will see the sides of the building there. The southern portion of the site, southern. You've provided really nice relief. It's got, the jog in the building. That's where the entrance is. There's glass. It's great. The north side is pretty monolithic in its own way, and so having some kind of relief, some kind of rhythm going along there. Like to see something that could happen on that side of the building in particular. I would like to condition seeing exactly where the bikes are going to go and the bike racks are going to go. Because it's also not called out in the plans, if I'm correct on that. And then to continue on the landscape proposal that we've got here. Oh, I guess materiality too. Bravo on that as well.
Hey, Adam, just on the bike thing real quick, do you have a preference for the location of the bike rack?
Preference? I would like to see them scattered wherever there's access to the units. So north side, you've got access to the units, have a bike rack over on that side. And obviously at the main entrance, and then in the front if there's going to be entrance there too. So scattered around the site, because there's multiple access points, that whole north side is going to be accessed from the ground level. Someone, not everyone will drive up, so have someone, an area where someone could park their bike and then go into their unit. So scattered around would be, yeah.
Okay, thanks. And you were talking about materials. Sorry to interrupt.
I appreciate the materiality and the colors that you guys are proposing as well. I think you're definitely on a good track there. Landscape plan. My question before about whether this was the final package and if we're going to see this again too, because we're still looking at a conceptual landscape plan that doesn't have a ton of detail. So it's hard, it's mainly difficult for us to give good feedback. We like to have things that we can push against and react against as well. Not against, react to. So, because that's helpful. It's, schematic and conceptual. Yeah, the plant palette is utilitarian but appropriate, except for that discrepancy with the tree species. On the plan, basically it's hard when you've got a narrative and the plan. We're really going to go off of the plan. So you've got proposed right now just the Lagerstremia and the pistache, and so that's what we're looking at. You also have those planted, the landscape architect has those planted in the bioswales, which is one, not going to be great for the trees. Two, is going to impact the functioning of the bioswale, because they're there for a reason, to filter water. And if you have a tree planted in the middle of it, it's going to impact the functioning of that. So there's two things you can do. You can rethink where the bioswales are, or rethink where the trees are. So things to think about there. There aren't any bioswale plantings and species called out. What you have here are bulletproof ground covers, but they're not part of the LID design species. I will mention that, as I want to do, that the crepe myrtles, I love to see different species than crepe myrtles than Lagerstremia, so thinking about some different varieties there. Pistache and crepe myrtles are all over everywhere in California, the West Coast, most of the country. So think about some other diversity. Let's see. The landscape does feel shoehorned in here. I know you're trying to maximize the amount of storage units you're having and the size of the building there. And you've got this site that you've got the fire constraints and the drainage constraints. But we're trying to squeeze out a little bit more space to get these things in that we're hoping to see. Because all these requirements that we're working with in the code requirements are there for reasons, and we, they're all important concepts to consider. The tree plantings in the utility easement are going to be problematic, and then, wanting to know, with that planting strip on the sidewalk there, that's great that we have that planting strip, and potentially if if you can move the trees out into that does give you more diversity in your plantings, proposed plantings there. You can spice them up a little bit because it is the front of the building, and it's where everyone goes past and drives past. If you look on that road, it's a nice, nicely tree-lined street, kind of going all around there. So really maximizing as leafy as possible. And again, that helps to break up the massing of what's there, because it is a pretty utilitarian part of town. Kudos on keeping and including the caretaker unit. Love to see that as well. That should cover it for me now. I may spark some other things, but that should do it for me now. Again, thanks for bringing this, and thanks for all your efforts, and for the great design work that you guys have put in. Really appreciate it, and thanks for the package.
Thanks, Adam. Vice Chair Birch, your comments.
Yeah, echo everyone's comments about looking forward to seeing this project improve Airway Drive, and it's been a storage site. It's an industrial area. There's a mix of uses. It's become more interesting along Airway Drive and in that area with some breweries coming in, and there's a more of a retail presence. And so any of these older industrial uses that improve, and we get the street improvements, and we get the landscape, and we get the updated architecture, I'm going to call it that neighborhood, though it doesn't have a lot of residences, continues to improve. We're excited to see you get this done, so we want to try to help do that. The comment that I have on the architecture relates to that airway facade, second level, the windows. And I understand the difficulty of doing the full-length window. That's definitely a different construction challenge. But it seems to me that we got the two windows at the caretaker space. We've got the two large windows, and then we just stop. And I'd like to see that pattern either finish. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. It doesn't have to be another large window and 2 small windows. I'm not all about symmetry, and especially in a contemporary sort of, utilitarian sense. But even adding another window and getting the spacing right so that there's a nice resolution of windows on the facade there, it tends to, I don't know, we start to look a little bit like a data center when we lose windows on that second level and we don't have larger openings down below. Not that we're trying to fool anyone that it's not a storage facility, but we'd like it to feel like a permeable, open, well-lit space. So, Drew, we can talk about whether or not this is a shall or a consider, but I would like to see a resolution of the window of the fenestration as we move to the north end of the building. So I'll leave really all of the comments that have been made about the landscape. I think there's a concern that the plan we're looking at today may or may not be able to achieve meeting the many demands of fire, public utility easements, getting trees in. I would suggest that the 4-foot planting strip at the street is another, it's further from the building, so it changes the relationship of the trees to the building and screening the building a little bit. It gets to be a bit far away if those are the only trees that we can do there, and that's just a thought on that I wanted to add. And I feel like I hate to make this comment, but it seems like there's an opportunity of 4 small units, 6 medium units, and 2 large units cutting a slice out. I'm not 100% convinced that we're not going to need that 10 feet to achieve what we need to achieve at Airway Drive. And I hate to play around with a pro forma on a project because we're the design review board and we don't talk about site plans and we don't talk about interior layouts, but I'm just afraid if we're going to get to a 4-foot planting strip, a 5-foot sidewalk, a 7.5-foot PUE, and all we can have are some trees that are going to fit into a 4-foot planting strip, I don't know that that's going to be adequate to create this layered screening of the 2-story building. So, I'm concerned that we're going to condition that there's got to be a certain number of trees and a certain size of a landscape strip, and that's going to tell you that you need a little bit more space along the front. And fire, of course. If fire says you can have a 14-foot drive, that 6 feet that's left there, to have the PUE planted without trees and have decent tree line in that next 6 feet, that sounds like a really, really healthy solution to the whole issue. So we do talk about needing to talk to fire a lot in these meetings, and we'll just see where it goes. But I agree with the team, and I just wanted to sort of do my own math backing up to the building as well to just kind of clear my head. But thank you for the presentation, and look forward to getting this done with you guys.
Chair Weigel?
Sure.
Can I pulled up the approved street tree list, and I think maybe that we could find with our landscape contractors up there that we might be able to find a recommendation for trees that could be planted in the planter strip that are maybe a little bit taller than what's proposed on the plan and might address some of your concerns. If you want me to read the list.
Let's circle back to that.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea, Susie. Let's circle back to that.
I'll keep it up.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I don't have a ton to add. I did have a couple of questions that came to my brain while I was flipping through everything. But one thing I think that that Michael kind of keyed off on here is the adjacent buildings are unique in their own right, and your proposed building is a vast improvement to what's currently there, right? Because what's currently there is, old Butler buildings basically that are just kind of cobbled together, right? I mean, it's a old school storage unit, if you will. But what's interesting about the adjacent properties is, on the one hand, the property to the south does in fact have a planting strip, a sidewalk, and then what appears to be trees in the PUE, which has me hit, or maybe not, maybe it's right outside of the PUE. But what's interesting about that particular parcel is it's starting to create that layering a little bit. There's some larger trees. They're changed in depth a little bit from Airway Drive. And so I'm wondering if maybe we might want to have a conversation about that with Susie's inclusion of the plant palette from the city. So just, I guess, get your wheels spinning on that one. And then my other couple of questions were related to the finish board. And so, Susie, could you bring me the finish board, please? Thank you. So if I'm understanding correctly, the agreeable gray is your kind of main body color for all of your stucco, correct? Okay, cool. And then you've got the metal wood grain finish, but it doesn't look like you've picked a wood species on here. Does it make sense? Like you handed us 3 samples and there were 3 different samples, but you guys haven't picked like maple or oak or what have you. So what species is this shown here on the? Yeah, it just says metal panel wood grain finish. I guess what I'm asking is, what is said color? Medium oak. Okay, medium oak. All right. It's the 3rd chip. So it's this guy, medium oak. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so just so everybody's clear, it is not orange like on the picture. I think that's... Okay, good. It does look nice. Yeah, it's just I think when I looked at these material samples and I looked at the board, I was scratching my head a lot. I'm like, wait, that's pretty orange looking. Yeah, yeah. I'm an architect. I definitely experienced that big time. Okay, great. So medium oak. We're going to write that down. Where did I put it? Yes, please. Okay. No, that's fine. Okay, the wrought iron fence. I'm just assuming black wrought iron standard, the way it's shown. Okay, cool, perfect. And then the corrugated metal system. I remember seeing another color for it, but Old Town Gray, cool, correct? It's circled right next to it. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. And then all the windows are just going to be standard anodized aluminum, silver. Okay, perfect. And then PV. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Susie. I appreciate you. All right. Sorry. I'm the architect. I get to worry about colors, I guess. So related to finishes, the only thing that's not shown on your finish board, as silly as this sounds, is the trash enclosure. And there is a decided lack of information about the trash enclosure. However, based on the small elevation that you've drawn, I can interpret that it's a CMU trash enclosure with a roof, and I'm assuming that the roof is probably going to be the same color as the cool gray or whatever, the corrugated metal. And I would imagine that the sunshade for the parking is also that cool gray, right? So they're kind of, so you've got the cool gray on the building, you've got the cool gray on the parking, and you got the cool gray on the roof for the trash enclosure, right? Cool, awesome. And then standard CMU, split face? Just split face, kind of like gray color, perfect, okay. I think that'll work with the gray tones that you have. I'm trying to get to conditions that we can write down for staff so that when you come in with your final package, staff will go, great, split face concrete block, awesome. Cool gray roof, awesome, right? And they can just go down the list and check everything off. All right. Yeah, kudos on the caretaker unit. We've seen a number of self-storage units in the last year, and some of them have caretaker units and some of them don't. And particularly because City Council has addressed our need for housing, every little bit helps. So I think, your inclusion of a caretaker unit is a great decision. It provides, a place for somebody or a couple potentially. So that's fantastic. My only quibble with the caretaker unit is that I feel like it's under-windowed, if you will, under-daylit. The 3-window layout that kind of existed in the 2021 configuration, I think would have put more light into the bedroom, which is nice. So I'm inclined to ask you guys to reintroduce the 3-window configuration that was on the December package, and then I think we can have a further discussion about kind of what's north of the caretaker unit on the second floor in terms of how that window kind of finishes out. And then the other thing that I would encourage, and we'll see how you guys have to make this work, but I really liked the shading, the whole covered parking scenario originally, but I think what might be an interesting option is maybe two 20-foot wide shade structures, and then an introduction of a finger planting with a tree. I think that might be interesting. I don't know what you guys think about that, but that may, because Susie, you mentioned you requested a tree in the parking area, right? They mentioned that. Is that correct?
I added a condition of approval so they'd meet the orchard-style planting.
The orchard-style parking.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just taking that further with, put the tree in the middle to meet the orchard-style parking requirement, and then put 2 covered parking structures, one over your ADA, and then one wherever else you want to put it. And you wouldn't have to mirror it. Like Michael was saying, you could be asymmetrical with it, whatever works for you guys. But it's the same amount of shade structure from a money perspective, one would hope. I think it's got one more column, maybe.
The only concern that I would have is that the tree would be too close to the shade structures and could cause problems as it matures. So if you could write a condition, maybe, no?
I don't think so. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 12 parking spaces. So if they did it if they bookended it, right, put the shade structures on either end and put the tree in the middle, I don't think so.
So not covering all of the parking spaces?
Well, I think it's either or, right? You cover all the parking spaces, and we wouldn't require the orchard-style parking requirement, or you do the orchard-style parking and then you kind of bookend your shade structure. I think. Anyway, okay, so that's it. So I'm going to try to read these back and see what the board thinks.
Can I make a comment on the last item?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm still looking at the site plan. I'm concerned that we're not going to find a location for a bike rack. And I would rather give up the orchard-style parking, cover the entire thing, and have at the west end of the parking, have the bike rack there, essentially taking a parking space.
So adjacent to the trash enclosure, right?
Or in the right spot. I don't think that the center of the parking strip is the right place to have bikes. I think that conflict would be there. But it seems like I can't find a spot that we're going to stick a trash enclosure, or pardon me, a bike rack, given the 5-foot sidewalk around the building and et cetera. So I would be more willing to sacrifice the orchard-style parking and a tree and have the bike rack somehow get integrated into the parking and along. But I don't know that much about bike racks and parking right next to one another. So, and the trash enclosure being where it is makes it a little tough to bury it at the end. So.
Yeah, I'm not remembering the bike rack requirements off the top of my head right now, because you're supposed to have a certain number based on square footage and use. But bike racks are not 18 feet deep, right? They're typically, about 8 to 10 feet, depending, because you got to put your bike and all that stuff. But it really depends on what type of bike rack they want to purchase or install. I mean, there's fully enclosed locked bike storage units. There's just, kind of your run-of-the-mill, snake S-shaped bike racks. There's some more elaborate ones. So really it's up to the applicant in terms of how many they provide as required by code, but then also if they infuse a little bit of design into it out of their choice. But I agree with you, to your point. I was trying to give them some flexibility. But yeah. Okay, so I'm going to try to read some conditions. So we'll see how we do. And so I'm going to start with the East Drive on Airway Drive. So the applicant shall request a reduction in the 20-foot drive running north-south on the east facade, on the east side of the property, to a minimum of 12 feet from the City of Santa Rosa Fire Department. So I think all we're asking is the applicant to ask to reduce the drive. And if fire says no, then fire says no.
Can I read that back?
Sure. I think it's kind of a quirky one, so.
Shall request a reduction in the 20-foot drive aisle that runs north-south on the north side?
On the Airway Drive, east side.
On the east side.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, shall request a reduction in 20-foot wide drive lane running north-south on the east side to a minimum of 12 feet.
I would say east side adjacent to Airway Drive to a minimum of 12 feet.
Adjacent to Airway
And Susie, if you wanted to add this to a minimum of 12 feet per City of Santa Rosa zoning code 20-36.080.
Okay. Zoning code. What section was that?
20-36.080.
080?
080, yeah, 20-36.080 driveways. Subsection A.
That's right.
Okay, does that sound good, Mike and Adam? Is that kind of what you guys were thinking? Okay,
Yeah, let's see what else you got.
okay.
I'd even say, I mean, I would just like to see it completely eliminated, but
Yeah, and I think the problem with that, though, is, if we condition it and then they go ask fire and fire says no, then they can't fulfill that condition. Whereas if we're telling them that they need to go ask fire to reduce it and we're giving them some parameters that we'd like to see, then that gives them the flexibility to work with the fire department. Because I'm a little concerned that if we say eliminate the drive and then fire says nope, can't eliminate the drive, can't reduce the drive must be there, then that kind of leaves our applicant in a tough spot. I guess that's how I would think about it if I were the applicant. Okay. Okay, so Mike and Adam, you guys talked about biofiltration. And Mike, you said shall require biofiltration plants from the City of Santa Rosa LID list. Is that correct?
yeah, I don't know if we have to have that as a condition, but I mean, to be approved, they need to,
They did, yeah.
yeah.
But I guess my question is, from what you saw in the landscape plans, is there a specific species or type of biofiltration you'd like to see? I mean, or was there lack of information because it was kind of conceptual?
Conceptual, and none of the plants on the plans are on the LID list.
Okay.
I think it's.
Yeah, give me a second real quick.
I think it's one of those that they're going to be required to meet what's on the LID plant list. So we don't necessarily need to condition that.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not seeing it in the planning division conditions that are in the resolution.
Are there any front?
Any reference to that, I guess.
That they have to abide by
Yeah.
LID?
Yeah.
Maybe Susie and Amy can speak to that.
Yeah, Susie and Amy, could you guys speak to that?
I'm sorry.
Just that the project would be, that we don't have to condition LID because it's going to be a requirement
Correct.
at the end.
Correct. Yes, it's a requirement, and LID requirements are probably already in the Exhibit A. The project's likely already been conditioned. And as far as the plants in bioretention areas, those will be reviewed in compliance with the allowable species when the plans are submitted. And they'll, yeah, all of those planting plans get reviewed.
Oh, I see it. It's in Exhibit A. Thanks, Susie. I didn't swipe far enough. Okay. Okay, so next condition would be shall provide bike storage. And
Locations.
yeah, and I heard from Adam that you wanted it scattered near access to units, but I think Michael brings up a good point. We've only got a 5-foot sidewalk around the building, so perhaps the bike storage needs to be centrally located. And so should the bike storage be centrally located directly adjacent to the trash enclosure? Or should it be directly adjacent to the front entry? Or another option that you guys would like to look at?
I think Michael's onto something with that thought, and I don't feel a need to make that choice for them. I think that they should evaluate and see what the best spot is. Maybe one will rise to the top.
Okay, so why don't we say shall provide bike storage location centrally located adjacent to office entry? Or near. You're right, adjacent is a little too definite. Near office entry. You got that one?
Yeah, that one was easy. Thank you.
That's a really good question. Go ahead and ask. Yeah, ask that.
So the public can hear also, we have to do the microphone.
Okay. Was wondering if we could stipulate if the bike storage should be covered or not.
I want to point out that zoning code table 3-4 that requires bicycle storage says that no bicycle storage is required for self-storage facilities. However, that said, it's fine to add bike storage as a condition, but just keep that in mind in making something cost prohibitive. So, but that is an excellent point.
I'd be careful, like saying bike storage, maybe bike parking or.
Oh yeah, bike rack, maybe bike rack. Bike rack. No, bike parking. Bike parking. You're right, bike parking. Oh, and I found it. 3-4, automobile and bicycle parking requirements by land use type. Self-storage, none required. It does say, however, 2 spaces required for manager or caretaker. So because it's absent of the table, should we define a number or no? Susie, what do you think?
I think you can.
Okay, I was going to look at the table here real quick. I mean, so warehouse is one space for 14,000 square feet. Self-storage unit is basically a big giant warehouse. So how many square feet is your facility? 60,000? So that's what, 6 spaces if we round down?
I think that, I would, warehouse is a different kind of use. A warehouse has employees that are coming and going. I think that there's a reason that there's no requirement for bicycle parking at a self-storage unit, although I will say that, but when this was written, and the reality now that people are riding their bicycles very definitely more, I think it's reasonable to request a few. I think 6 might be, I still don't think that they're the same use, so using that as your role model may not be the best role model.
No, I don't disagree, Susie. I just was just looking at the table and trying to find, somewhat of an equivalency. I mean, it looks like in the table, the largest square footage is 14,000 square feet per bicycle parking space as I scroll down it. But I think to your point, self-storage is an intermittent visit. So what do we feel about two bicycle parking spaces? Two. We like 2. Do you guys like 2? Okay, awesome. Okay, so we got 2 conditions. So Adam, I was trying to write down some information about what I think was a consider regarding tree plantings in bioswales. Would you want to take a stab at that condition? I think I consider moving, relocating, or adjusting design of bioswales and tree placement. I don't know, does that sound right to you?
It's more about the tree placement than the bioswale placement. So, but I think that the consider is, yeah.
Do you want to take a stab at writing the condition?
I think that you had a good start there. Could you reread that for me?
Yeah, I was saying consider relocating, or I would say consider adjusting tree placement within proposed bioswales. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, it's hard. Just planting trees in the bioswales is no. So, Mike, do you have any input on trying to craft a good condition for this too?
There are trees on the Santa Rosa LID list, so I think just selecting a tree species from the Santa Rosa LID list would, be appropriate. So do we, not the species that they have on the plan? So do we just follow our, our LID requirements?
Potentially, maybe. I mean, I guess you guys are more the expert on this than me, but is the planting of a tree in a bioswale a best practice no-no, or is it a code no-no? And that I think maybe that's the question I would have about that.
I don't think the code speaks to it.
So, and that's my point. So if it's
Getting its staff for that.
Yeah, so if it was a code issue, then I don't think we would necessarily need to condition it. But if it's a best practice no-no, then I think we perhaps should provide some guidance on that, and that may be shall provide tree from Santa Rosa LID in bioswale. I mean, I don't know, what do you guys think about that? Mike?
I think it's the LID area is the only area to plant a tree on this site. That it's so packed with pavement and building that the only area to put a tree is in the LID. So we want trees on the back. I think we condition a planting of a tree species from the LID list.
In the bioswales on the west side of the property.
I think that would be, this is something that the landscape architect is going to have to noodle over a little bit, and I think that that's some good direction. It keeps it specific but general to say plant an appropriate tree species in in that from this list, because then it fits into that rubric of the LID.
Yeah, and I think you hit it because we're saying you need to have those, you need to have trees on the west boundary at the north and south corners. They need to, and we don't need to say anything beyond that. It means that if there's a pushback about what tree is planted there, you can't say, great, we'll just eliminate the trees. So we just want to say you're required to have a tree in this location. They're already required through the conditions to work from the LID list. We don't need to get real specific about it. So does that make sense? Shall maintain trees at the on the west boundary of the property at the north and south corners, and then they've got to work from LID. And we're saying don't eliminate the trees out of convenience. Keep trees. We want them there.
So how do you want to write that? You want to say shall provide tree per conceptual landscape plan at north and south of west property boundary, tree species to be selected from City of Santa Rosa LID list.
And to specify the LID ground covers and shrubs, everything too. The plant species from that list for the bioswales.
Well, I don't,
Or two separate things we're talking
yeah, I think they're two separate things. I don't know, what do you guys think?
I think we could do them together if you just said we want 2 trees, and we want the plant species to be from the LID manual.
Okay, okay, so, all right, let me try, take another stab at this. All right, so, shall plant 2 trees at north and south bioswales on west property boundary. All plant species in bioswales shall be from the City of Santa Rosa LID list.
I can't type that fast on this little keyboard, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So shall plant 2 trees at north and south.
North and south bioswales on west property boundary per conceptual landscape plan.
Bioswales of the west property boundary per
Conceptual landscape plan. All tree and plant species in these bioswales shall be from the City of Santa Rosa LID list. You get that?
I think so.
I know,
I'll
I saw the
repeat.
transcription too, yeah.
I'll repeat all of them back to you after we're done, and if we need to edit any of them, we can.
Excellent, all right, okay. So I was gonna do one kind of catch-all finish condition, just because there's a little bit of lack of clarity on the boards. So what I was gonna say was, shall provide building finishes per sheet A600, which includes agreeable gray as the stucco finish, Old Town gray as the corrugated metal finish on the building south facade, trash enclosure roof, and parking shade structure roofs. Metal panel wood grain finish to be medium oak. Medium oak. And then wrought iron fencing to be manufacturer's standard black. And then everything else is pretty clearly identified.
You said what black? Standard?
Manufacturer's standard black.
Thanks.
That way they can just go buy some black fence and put it up. I did just notice it's 8 feet high. Are we cool with that? Are we cool with 8 feet? Okay, cool. We're cool with 8 feet, by the way. All right. You have all that, Susie? Okay. Shall provide trash enclosure plan. And more detail for final submission. Trash enclosure shall be split-faced CMU block. And then, were you guys going to use metal gates, you think? Okay, cool. And metal gates to match roof finish. That sound good? Just gray? All right. To match the trash enclosure roof finish. Split-faced CMU block, yeah. Okay. I think I have 2 more conditions. No, maybe 3. I think I've got 3, from what I heard. 3, maybe 4. All right, you ready for the next one, Susie? Okay. All right. At southeast corner of building on 2nd floor shall provide 3-window vertical pattern as submitted in 12/16/2021 concept design set. Yeah, the date's different from the actual meeting, so hang on.
I'll use the meeting date if that's all right.
The meeting date was 12/16/2021, I think.
Thanks.
But the date on the plan set is 10/18/2021, if that helps. It's also attachment 6 for this meeting. The concept plan set. Ready? Okay. So, Michael, I'm going to turn this one over to you. I heard a consider, I think, on this one, but you can tell me if I'm wrong. But consider the airway facade, the east facade changes. I'm going to let you tackle that one.
Consider additional windows from the vertical windows at caretaker unit to the north corner on the east facade, 2nd level. Let's see. Back up again. We can use some of that. Consider additional windows on the north end of the east elevation. That may be it. Consider additional windows to the north end of the east elevation on the 2nd level. With the idea being that we balance out the windows and have a more complete.
There is a window on the north facade on the second floor.
Right.
But I think you're just talking, finish it up.
On the east facade, yep.
So just, can I repeat that one back really quick? Consider additional windows on the north end of the east elevation of the second level, right?
All right, perfect. And just because we had a discrepancy on this one, I just want to clarify it to make it easy for staff. Shall provide decorative metal green screen in locations shown on A200. Yeah, just because there's some renderings that don't have it and some 3D renderings that have it missing and stuff like that. That one sound good? Okay. And then, Mike, I want to turn this one back to you to try to see if you could maybe add your thoughts on this. You talked a little bit about the east facade, the lower area with the clerestory windows, but then also, I think Adam mentioned this too, also the kind of the flatness of the north facade behind the metal, the wood finish metal. You want to take a stab at that? You think it's a consider that they try to see if they can work something out, or would you rather make it something they have to do?
Well, I actually am looking at A200. And it does look like they have some score lines or some reveal on the lower levels, so I think that would satisfy what I said. Just I think maybe the elevations don't show it, or there was something that I didn't see, and so if we can, the lower floor can be the low, the way that it's shown on A200, I think I'd be fine.
Okay, and then the one thing I am missing is obviously, I think there's a lack of, tied to that, there's a lack of definition on the stucco areas in terms of like control joints and stuff. I think that might help. It's certainly going to help the south and west facades, but then I think I still have some concerns about that north facade. I know Adam certainly did, but I think Mike's got one. So we've addressed the score lines on the lower area on the east. It's shown. We're comfortable with that? Yes?
Yep.
Any additional windows in that, or are you guys okay with that now? Kind of work through it. Okay, cool. So then maybe the condition for the west and the south elevation could be, shall include stucco control joint layout similar, shall include stucco control joint layout on south elevation and west elevation similar to east elevation. Can't exceed 144 square feet anyway, 12 by 12. Okay, and then Adam, did you have any thoughts on that north elevation one, how to maybe condition that?
Well, it seems like you also had some concerns about that as well. I don't think you mentioned that. Yeah, I mean, they're introducing the cosmetic windows, but, on the other side, they've got the green screen. Just figuring out some way to condition a consider for that. I would see it as a consider. Do you see it as a shall?
I mean, this is tough, I think, for me, because, I think the east elevation's pretty successful. I think the south elevation's pretty successful, and the west elevation's pretty successful. But in our design guidelines, we have four-sided architecture as one of the big elements, and I think there's just a pretty significant flatness to that north elevation. Granted, it is, you're just going to drive by it. There's not, I don't know. I don't know how to solve it. I certainly don't want to add cost to the project because, we kind of talked about this already, costs being what they are. So maybe it needs to be a consider and give them the flexibility to either create relief or introduce maybe the metal panel, the corrugated metal panel. So they're pulling from their pallet.
Yeah, I don't think introducing anything else. Yeah, I mean, some of the metal panels, potentially something with the wood somewhere. But I also don't want to just design it for them. So so it's kind of, that's why I could see it being a consider of adding relief through the existing materials palette.
Yeah, okay. So let me take a, all right, let me see if I can. Okay, consider adding additional architectural definition to north elevation, either through use of materiality change or or massing relief. Does that sound okay?
That's general enough. Yeah, it doesn't require them one way or the other. We're not saying change the massing.
Yeah, it's real flat. And it's a lot of flat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But what your language sounded good to me.
I guess the one thing we haven't talked about is the front planting. We talked about the road, but not the plantings. You guys want to take a stab at the PUE and?
Well, one thing I noticed from street view was that you have overhead utility lines, and so we really are limited to there's only a few trees that we can plant under utility lines. So that would be a crepe myrtle, a Chinese pistache, which are both proposed on the landscape plan. Susie, do you want to tell us what other trees we can plant in a 4-foot wide planter?
But yeah, this would be a good time to talk about the list that I told you we'd come back to it.
Once again, not designing it for them, of choosing and mandating a tree species. I think that the onus is on them to say, we have these thoughts, they need to reevaluate. Rather than we're saying plant.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to find a way to condition that because I kind of heard 3 different things from the board. The first thing I heard was creating depth and relief from a planting perspective. Michael kind of talked about that, because street trees create kind of one kind of pedestrian-centric scale and depth, and then if you have some space and then another planting area beyond the PUE or even in the PUE, that creates additional depth, right? I kind of heard that from you all. So I'm wondering if the board wants to provide a requirement for street trees in addition to a depth of planting, I guess, along airway, or be more general and see how the fire department thing shakes out. I don't know how you guys are feeling about it, so.
I do think some of that is going to be dependent upon the other discussions that are happening around this front area.
I agree with that. I also think that, with the way it's currently laid out, at least on the landscape plans, I don't believe we'll be able to plant those trees there, so I think they should move to the planter strip behind the curb, between the sidewalk and curb.
At a bare minimum, right? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. So maybe there's two conditions related to this. So one condition is shall provide street trees in 4-foot planter strip per City of Santa Rosa street tree requirements. That's one, right? That's one condition of approval. And then the second one would be consider additional tree planting on property pending review of reduction of driveway. Is that
Say,
that works.
tree and landscape planting?
tree and landscape planting? Yeah.
Like Michael mentioned, if we have more space, jazz it up a bit more. So.
Did you get both of those, Susie?
One of them is already in the Exhibit A for the street trees. That's a standard condition of approval under Parks and Recreation. And then the other one, no.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Totally okay. Yeah, it's a good point that it's an Exhibit A. I think the reason why I wanted to add a condition to it is because we don't have street trees shown on any conceptual plan.
They will be required
they're
to put
required,
that.
then-
Yeah.
then
And the other thing I want to point out too is there is a condition about undergrounding new utilities. I don't know if the overhead wires will be considered new service to a new building or not. So there is some, yeah, it's a little confusing there. So there may be an opportunity and there may not be an opportunity there. So. And I do have the street tree list up if you want to be more specific about what types of trees, but okay, I'm going to close it.
Okay, cool, thanks. Yeah, I think these guys are trying to give the applicant some flexibility to pick what works, from a cost perspective and a design perspective. So the second one, so the shall we don't need to do, and the consider would be consider additional planting and trees pending reduction of east property drive aisle. Okay.
Say pending potential,
Pending potential reduction. Yeah.
depending on what fire says, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then the last one was Michael's, in terms of striking the requirement for orchard-style parking and instead requiring all parking to be covered. Correct?
I can eliminate that orchard-style parking that I added on to the resolution. I can just strike that, and then you can just write one condition for the covered parking.
Yeah, okay. So I think we'd like to strike item 9 on the conditions of approval. And then, do you want that to be a shall or a consider for the parking?
I think it's a consider. I mean, I think that I got going down the road of let's get the bike parking near the front entry and potentially under covered parking. I would rather see the space used. So rather than worrying about how much covered parking there is for me, I would rather see space that's left over or could be used near the entry for the bike parking rather than orchard style parking. So I don't know that I have an opinion one way or the other as to how much the parking should be covered.
I think, let's go back to that condition we wrote about the bicycle parking. I think we can solve it all there. Can you reread that to me, Susie?
The one that was easy. Shall provide shall provide 2 bike parking spaces located centrally near the office entry.
No, that needs to be its own thing. Sorry, I was trying to kill too many birds with one stone.
Yeah, I'm really ambivalent about how much covered parking there is outside of what they need to do per code. I was mostly interested in swapping the orchard-style space, orchard finger for the bike parking. I'd rather see the bike parking.
Which I think we've already done.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, I think that is it, unless anybody can think of an additional condition that I left out. Sorry, there's so many.
That's okay. I just want to clarify, did we want to eliminate the orchards, the tree in that parking area? We do want to strike that.
I'm not sure that it lends to the project.
I would be in agreement with that. Everybody else?
I'm okay with that.
No?
I think it's a good strike, so
Yep.
Okay.
that works. I was the one who added it in.
So yeah, we're gonna strike item 9 in the conditions of approval and renumber accordingly. Okay, so just one more pass. Any other thoughts? Okay. I think we're ready to read them back and then talk to the applicant. Make sure everything works for them.
Okay,
All right, here we go.
starting at the top. Shall request a reduction in 20-foot drive aisle that runs north-south on the east side adjacent to Airway Drive to a minimum of 12 feet per zoning code, section 2036.080. Consider additional planting of trees pending potential reduction of east property drive aisle. I have to, is that?
I would just say east drive aisle.
Perfect.
Yeah, not property. Yeah.
East drive aisle. Shall provide 2 bike parking spaces located centrally near office entry. Shall plant 2 trees at north and south bioswales of the west property boundary per the conceptual landscape plan. All tree and plant species shall be from the City of Santa Rosa LID list. Shall provide building finishes per sheet A600, which include agreeable gray as the stucco finish, Old Town gray as corrugated metal finish on building south facade, trash enclosure roof, and parking structures. Metal panel wood grain finish to be medium oak, and wrought iron fence to be manufacturer's standard black. Shall provide trash enclosure plan in more detail for final submittal. Trash enclosure shall be split-faced CMU block with metal gates to match trash enclosure roof finish. At southeast corner of building, second floor, shall provide 3-window vertical pattern as shown in plan set submitted for concept design review on December 16th, 2021, in parentheses dated October 18th, 2021. Consider additional windows on north end of the east elevation of the second level. Shall provide decorative metal green screen in locations shown on A200. Shall include stucco control joint layout on south and west elevations similar to east elevation. Consider adding additional architectural definition on north elevation either through use of materiality change or massing relief. How'd I do?
I think that's good. So if the applicant could go up to the podium there. So the cool thing about design review board, I think, is we have all these opinions and thoughts based on our design guidelines. But if something doesn't work for the applicant, we're flexible in terms of, hey, this isn't going to work because of code. Hey, this isn't going to work because of cost. Hey, this isn't going to work for whatever reason, generally speaking. So we'd like to know your thoughts about kind of the conditions that we put together for your project. And if they make sense to you, if there are any that kind of scream like, no, we can't do it, that'd be good to know.
Yeah, we're in agreement with the conditions here. Yeah, pretty much all of them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. So with that, I guess we're maybe ready to go to a roll call vote.
I think we need to.
Oh, we need to amend, yes.
Yes.
So I need a friendly amendment to amend the motion per what Susie read.
So I'll move to approve the additions to the motion
Add the friendly amendment.
as a friendly amendment.
Yeah. Cool. So then we ask the motioner, do you agree with the friendly amendment?
Yes, I accept the friendly amendment.
And the seconder, do you agree with the friendly amendment?
I do.
Excellent. All right. So we have a motion and some amendments. And so we'll go to a roll call vote. So I'll turn it over to the recording secretary.
Board Member Cook?
Aye.
Board Member Jones Carter?
Yes.
Board Member Sharon?
Aye.
Vice Chair Birch?
Aye.
Chair Weigel?
Aye.
So this passes with 5 ayes, and Board Member Withrich is absent.
Excellent. So unanimous, yes. Thank you, applicant. We appreciate your time and look forward to seeing your project. And hopefully, it'll be standing for 30, 40, 50 years. And it'll be a nice addition to our city. Because from what I understand, self-storage is the largest growing industry in the United States. So that's very cool. So thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
for working out those conditions right on the fly. We appreciate it.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you
Fantastic.
so much. Yeah, a lot of work on everyone's end. Thank you.
It's like we did a design charrette or something, I guess. I don't know. Excellent. Thanks, guys. And just so you know, all you'll have to do now, you've got conditions, so kind of fix your plans and submit them to Susie, and you'll be off to the races. So thank you. So with that, we are moving to item 9, which would be adjournment, but I want to take a pause because I forgot to mention this earlier under board business. Shame on me. But since we are the Design Review Board, I thought I'd mention that the American Institute of Architects Redwood Empire Chapter Design Awards submissions are in the gallery above us. In the council chambers here. So that's pretty cool. They've been on display for a couple of weeks, I think, and they'll be on display, I can't remember till when. So come down to City Hall and check out the design review, or the design awards boards. And then all the winners are posted on the American Institute of Architects Redwood Empire Chapter's website. A Google search will get you there. So that's pretty cool that they're up there. I figured we should mention that since we're Design Review Board. All right, so with that, we are at item 9, adjournment, and we stand adjourned.